It's the Big Fat American Rock Show. I'm Zach Martin with our special guest, Ed Heck, who is one of the most amazing artists in our time. I know it's going to embarrass you to say that, but one of the most prolific artists of our generation. I would say an icon on parallel with many of the pop artists that we're familiar with, whether it's Andy Warhol or Peter Max and various others. You're up there. I mean, you just are an amazing artist. And I have to, right from the get-go, tell you how much I appreciate what you do for people. You don't count the cost. I have an expression. Once you count the cost, you've already lost. And you're constantly giving of yourself. You have the random acts of art, as you call it. We have the heart piece. You can talk a little bit about this a little bit later. But before we go any further, why don't you tell us your rock bio? Tell us a little bit about your background, where you're from, what got you into art, and some of the artists that influenced you to make you the artist that you are today.
Well, I'm from Greenpoint, Brooklyn, right next to Williamsburg, which is the most popular Brooklyn part now. I was always interested in art as long as I can remember. I mean, like a lot of people ask me, well, how can you do that? I'm like, well, how can you not? I mean, because as children, we all draw. I mean, every young child draws. And just at a certain point, some people stop and some people don't. And I didn't stop.
Yes, but in all fairness, Ed, there's some people who can use the crayon within the lines, and then there's me, where everything is scribbled across. So,
well, there's no rules in art, so you can do whatever you like.
True.
And actually, evident of my current style, I mean, growing up, I was always interested in doing very realistic art. Like I remember my mom had this old Bible that I used to go up and get off a top shelf, which I guess I wasn't supposed to be having. But it had these really intricate etchings in it, like of Samson, pushing the pillows apart. And I would try to find the most detailed, complex one, and I would go out on our front steps or in Brooklyn, stoop, and draw, try to copy the most complicated ones. And growing up, I was just interested in realistic stuff. And just little by little, I started to be more inspired by people that can do stuff with an economy of line and emote an emotion from you. Just from simple lines, as opposed to drawing every leaf on a tree. And then my current style, which is pop art, is considered. I mean, I worked for 18 years at the American Museum of Natural History, doing very detailed scientific illustration.
Whoa!
The complete opposite, spectrum from what I do now. But I was always inspired again by little children, and how little children draw unaffected by what the end result is going to be. Things are a little bit askew, a little bit off, and I kind of like that. And originally I wanted to do a childlike drawing. I was going to draw my version of like a police lineup of the boogeyman. And I wanted the boogeyman to look like a child draw them. And,
That's great.
And the whole joke behind it was that that's what they actually look like. It's not just a bad drawing by a child. It's what the boogeyman looks like. And I kind of got inspired by that. And then I went back to the school where I went to college, School of Visual Arts, and took a continuing ed class in silkscreen. I wanted to learn silkscreening. And I was like, well, what can I do in this class to learn the process? And I was like, oh, these little drawings. I've been keeping little drawings while I was trying to do childlike drawings. And I blow them up. And I said, well, that would be simple enough to learn the process. And I kind of had a religious experience when I pulled my first print. And my instructor at the time, Donald Sherrilton, he did prints for Andy Warhol and Rauschenberg, and he's like, the stuff you're doing in class, you could take to a gallery right now and start selling this stuff. So that's kind of where it was born.
That's interesting. So I noticed that you have this really unique way of blending your colors. You would say they're all basically primary. How does the process?
Well, they're not actually primary colors. What starts with, I keep a sketchbook now where I do. My originals are actually like an inch or smaller. I draw these little sketches in my book, and that was part of what I kind of realized when I was trying to draw like a child, because I know too much. So if I want to draw a building in perspective, I can draw a building in perspective. And I wanted to kind of draw the way a child drew, innocently, and things a little bit. So I would start keeping these little sketchbooks, and no one was allowed to see them. My wife couldn't even look at my sketchbook because, first of all, it's kind of like my head spilled out. But I would, as an artist, your ego. If I know someone's going to look at something, I want it to be drawn well.
Okay.
So I had to play a little game with myself. And especially since I come from the other end of doing very realistic work, I always fought wanting to do detail and not do detail. So, two sides of my brain would fight. But I would keep these little drawings, and if I knew no one was going to look at it, it allowed me the freedom to draw incorrectly.
I got you. Keep going.
So I would just do
something
thousands
funny.
of these drawings, and then I would go back later and look at my sketchbook, and I would feel like I didn't even do them. Some of the drawings I didn't know where they came from, and I would just start picking out drawings and say, "Oh, this would make a good painting. This would make a good painting." And what I do is I blow up the little sketch then, because I realized if I tried to like do sketches and then redo it, I would lose the spontaneity of that first sketch.
Yeah.
So my first little doodle in my sketchbook is my finish, and I will not allow myself to correct anything. So what I do is I just blow up that line drawing on the canvas, and where you see the little bumps in my lines, not from too much coffee. I don't drink coffee. It's actually where the pen bleeds in the bumps of the paper when you get really close up.
Right.
So, and I blow it up, and I scan in my sketchbooks into the computer, and I play with the colors on the computer first and make a printout as a guide of what I'm going to do. But none of my colors are primary. Well, they are primary colors, but none of them are out of the tube. I mix every color, so
they're all
different.
your design colors. So
Yeah.
Ed Heck design
Yeah.
colors. I
Yeah, I
like
guess
that.
so.
So maybe one day you can have Ed Heck design house paint.
Yeah.
Be great.
yeah, I would love
And
it.
like and that would give the person the ability who can't paint very well
Mm-hmm.
to just paint whatever they want, make it like, real statement in the neighborhood.
I think most people can paint if they
I think
if they
so.
get past the insecurities of what other people think.
I've always been amazed at the people that do the restoration. Like I was in that castle in Germany that's based on Cinderella.
Yeah, yeah.
And they had their little artisans like, going over the gold leaf and all of that stuff. Have you ever been in that castle? I
Yes,
think it's
yes. Yeah, I travel a lot in Germany.
What's it
so
called?
I don't remember. There's so many castles.
Newswander. What? Neuschwanstein.
That sounds good.
Okay, Neuschwanstein, and it was King. Was it Leopold or I don't know. This guy ends up dead. It was King Leopold. Well, I could see why they killed King Leopold because he put a lot of resources after he lost a war, from what I understand, in this castle, which is the most amazing thing, and gigantic German castle, and his throne room. I mean, he put himself on the level of Jesus, okay, with the apostles and this intricate art. And then right next to his throne room was this elaborate bedroom, which is where they got him, and they bring him back to Munich, and he ends up dying mysteriously in the lake the next day. But I wonder how that happened. But the artisanship and the effort that these people put into it, I'm just blown away. And I wish I could do what you do, even though you probably don't think it's a big deal. Like making all these kid-like things and then making them into art. I couldn't even get that far. Blending paint, are you kidding me? Everything would be really purple and really dark because I'd blend too many paints. But I got a feeling I know why you don't want your wife looking at your sketchbook, because you probably have like these drawings where the crosses, which means you're dead,
Yeah.
and the yelling and the hair's all wild. So you don't want her to see that. Like, who's that supposed to be? Right? Is that what that
There's
is?
probably a couple of those.
Probably
in
a
there.
couple of those.
Actually, I'm pretty sure there's a couple of those.
See?
in there. Nothing to do with her.
You and I are on the same level as far as like the our sense of humor. You just put that in there so when they see it, like, told you not to look in there. You make up these elaborate little things just to throw people off. What are some of the artists that inspire you while you're painting in your studio? It could be rock artists. It could be other musical artists. What kind of songs are playing on your radio or your listening device?
Well, music has always inspired me. Actually, when I was going to high school, I went to the High School of Art and Design. But I was deciding when I was in high school if I wanted to be a musician or an artist. Could I be a starving musician or a starving artist?
I noticed you didn't say, maybe I'll be a disc jockey. All right.
Actually,
Yeah?
that was actually I actually started just recently doing voiceover work. I've
check
always
you
had
out.
since I was a child doing voices. I just naturally always did voices, and I always had an interest in it. And then I met someone, probably Valerie Smoldone,
Of course.
who I
And
met through our mutual friend Leslie
Gold, who
And-
I introduced her to Carmine.
Oh, well, see, I
Yeah,
met
right.
Well, Leslie and I, Leslie was on the radio doing the Radio Chick show.
Yep.
And I was working at the American Museum of Natural History at the time, and just starting this kind of stuff that I'm doing now and getting in galleries and going along. And I would, on my way home, she would do afternoon drive. So I would listen to her show. And I remember once she had Chuck Nice was on there and her producer, Butchie.
Yep.
And they were talking about they should get a pop artist to do a portrait of Leslie's breast, because that was her logo.
So that's you?
No. Well, eventually it was me. But I was driving along and saying, hey, I'm a pop artist. And then like, I don't believe in accidents or anything. Things just, I think if you put things out into the universe that happen, I was like, oh, I could do that. And I didn't know at the time that Leslie already collected my artwork.
How about that?
And when she was on the radio in Boston, and she came to, I started doing Art Expo in New York when I first started doing this stuff. And I had a booth there. And I just happened to be out of the booth at the time. Leslie came by and left her card when she was still in Boston. So I missed it. But then one time I was in New York, and I happened to be in the booth, and Leslie came with her producer, Butchie, and I recognized him. She's like, oh, how do you know who I am? I'm like, I listen to you every day. And she's like, well, I collect your art. And then that's how I met through Carmine, a piece through Leslie, and then I started collaborating with Carmine because when I was in high school, I had a picture of Carmine on my wall in the basement.
No,
yeah.
really?
Yeah.
That's a little strange, Ed.
Yeah, I didn't know about him. I don't believe in accidents. Everything kind of happens, and that's how I met Valerie through I collaborated with Carmine doing some artwork. He came to a show of mine with Leslie, and Paul Stanley from Kiss was doing. He was with a gallery from Hawaii, and they were representing his art across from my booth. And Carmine has worked with Paul and is good friends with Paul. And then Carmine told me, oh, well, a publisher approached me like, Paul's doing artwork. He goes, but I don't know too much about art. When I designed drum sets, I sketched them out, but I don't know anything. I was like, well, do you work on a computer? And he's like, well, only for emails. I said, well, you could scan them in and play with colors and not, destroy your sketch. And he's like, hey, you want to collaborate? And I was like, all right. But I didn't think anything would come from it. And about 2 weeks later, he gives me a call. What are you doing Friday? I'm coming to your studio.
Really?
Yeah. And he came to my studio.
Yeah.
And I met him downstairs from my studio. And he's getting out of his car, taking his stuff out. And he hands me his phone. And he goes, here, you're on the air in Minneapolis. And he was doing a radio interview. And the guy's like, I hear you're doing artwork with Carmine Appice. I'm like, I guess I am.
Well, that's good. Now, see, Carmine, here's another connection you say there's no coincidences. Mm-hmm. My mom's name is Eleanor. Your mom's name is Eleanor. The first album that my mom ever gave me was Vanilla Fudge.
Oh, wow.
She goes, and it was on a cassette. She goes, here, you're going to like this.
Wow.
Led Zeppelin opened up for him. I'm like,
yes.
Okay. And so my mom was the cool one. Like when I was in the 70s, she gave me a copy of, you're going to like this, Up in Smoke, Cheech and Chong. Check it out. Don't tell your father. It was like one of those. Eleanor, what are they watching down there? That disgusting stuff. What's wrong with you, Eleanor? Shut up, Bill. That was
Dave's
my life.
Not here.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Who is it? Dave, man. Got the stuff. Open up, man. He's not here. So, and then Sister Mariella went, class. So, yeah, I was in the Cheech and Chong. And another favorite album my mother always liked was Goodbye Yellow Brick Road by Elton John. So she was the cool one. My dad was like, yeah, listen, Nat King Cole. I'm like, you're only a year older than my mother. What is this, Nat King Cole? Nah, Jimmy Dorsey, like all of these like big bands, which were fun to listen to, all right? But my mom was so much cooler when it came to, art and music. So fast forward, I'm learning how to be a disc jockey, and I'm going to school, Center for the Media Arts, and I have a friend of mine, his name is Adam. And we're walking home one day, and I go, well, Adam, we can go into Macy's and get some cologne for free. He goes, what do you mean? Samples. We'll get some samples. After we got the samples, he goes, want to come over to my house for a snack or something? I'm like, sure. What does your dad do? Like on the Upper West Side. He goes, well, he's a painter. I go, well, I guess you can make a lot of money painting them apartments, And he goes, no, he's an artist. So immediately I'm thinking, I don't know if I want to go up there. These artists are all weird.
Those artists.
I mean, I was raised by World War II guys, which their appreciation of art would have been the comic book, okay? Mm-hmm. Right? So I wasn't really well-rounded in that at the time. So I get up there, and the dad comes home. His name is Peter Max.
Oh.
So he's in this white suit. He's got the long hair. He's got the mustache. And he looked like one of the Beatles to me. I'm like, what was this guy? George Harrison. So he comes in, and we get in a discussion. And I'm, out of respect, I'm not going to do the imitation of Peter because it's, not cool. And he goes, what do you think about art? There, I did it. Mm-hmm. I go, well, it's really interesting, Mr. Max. I felt like Eddie Haskell. Call me Peter. I'm like, okay, Mr. Max, Peter. And he goes, what do you think? I go, well, you know what? If you stick to it, I think you can make money doing this. So he kind of giggled and has got all his artwork and stuff. And I'm oblivious to what's going on. And we've been friends ever since. So maybe that's why I was so oblivious. So I get home, I go to my mom. She goes, "What'd you do today?" I go, "I went over my friend Adam's house, and his dad's Peter Max." She goes, "What?" I go, "Yeah, he does some sort of art." She goes, "Does some sort of art?" Like, what's wrong with you? Are you stupid? I go, "What do you mean?" And she showed me, oh, she goes, "So that's who you're hanging out with?" "Yeah, that's who I'm hanging out with." And then my mom finally gets to meet him, which I don't want to repeat the sad story, but she had cancer at the time. She finally gets to meet him. And he takes out a napkin on a table. I think it was one of the restaurants over by his studio.
Shun Li?
Not Shun Li. I've been to Shun Li. Shun Li is great if you go in you get go to the place where they have the dim sum. The appetizers. Yeah. It's cheaper, but boy, it's really good. It was the other one that's by there. I forget the name of the place. I could see it in my brain. It's right across the street from Lincoln Center. There's this beautiful piece on this napkin for her and hands it over to her. Well, I was bawling like a little baby, but to her, it was the biggest moment. And what I learned from Peter and from various other artists, including yourself, and it's a reminder, is to always have an open heart, always be loving, and just do things without considering the cost. And I just realized that, really the lights went on. Like, you know what? I'm I guess focusing on the wrong things here. And when you focus on the right things and make yourself available to people, and you truly do things out of love, like your random art of kindness, the world opens up in many ways, and you find that you want for nothing. I don't know if you feel the same, but you find out you want for nothing. You have a different perspective. So, we all, whether we realize it or not, are formed by the art and music around us, and we can't let the art and music around us, we can't let it disappear. It's got to be part of curriculum. It's got to be something that we cultivate. It's got to be something that we continue to share, teach others, and learn, and try to, express ourselves. And everybody can be an artist in their own way. Maybe you can put together a collage. That's cool. Maybe you could, I remember I was always horrible in art. It was the one class where I always got a C+, and it screwed my GPA, and I got mad. I'm like, I'd have a 4.0 if it wasn't for the freaking art class. Or the typing was the other one that they made me do. But even with myself, I found my own ways of doing art, and maybe it's more audio. So it's good to hear that you're doing voiceovers. That's great. And, maybe we can get you as a regular one of these days on our channel,
Matt Valerie actually teaches a course at SVA where I went to college on voiceover and that. And I did a collaboration with Carmine Appice. We were doing some drum-inspired artwork together.
That's great.
And that's what we did. And we did a show. I had a gallery on Broadway in the city, and we did a show together there. And she came with Leslie. And she started talking to me about my art. And she's like, "I really like this. How do you promote yourself or do anything?" And I was like, "Well, I really know you're supposed to do that kind of stuff, but I never really did promote myself. Everything just kind of snowballs and happens that way, even though I know I should be responsible and promote myself." And she's like, "Well, I give a class on being a media personality." She goes, "And that's what you are. You should take my class. I do that, and I do classes on voiceover." And I was like, "Oh, voiceovers. That's something that I've always had an interest in." So I saw her then on Facebook post that she had a class coming up, so I enrolled in it.
Yeah,
and then I took it again, and then I took her boot camp and did demos and stuff, and I really liked that. And she's a great teacher.
Maybe if I did that, I'd actually get some voiceover gigs. I don't know about you, but I've literally have done thousands and thousands of auditions, even for a part that requires being a DJ, and I never get the work. I never get this sports guy, But my biggest dream of all, and maybe we can do this. This is something we can do together. I've always wanted to be a cartoon character.
Well, that's the kind of things that I like.
Do you see what I'm saying? This would be great. Like, I think I'm Peter Griffin a lot of times, and my wife is Lois.
So you could do
what
Peter
I'm
Griffin.
saying? Well, yeah. Well, that's already been done.
They had Adam West does the voiceover for Mayor West, and Adam, of course,
he's no longer with
passed
us.
Away,
yeah.
But I fortunately got to meet him several times.
Adam West.
Yeah, I love Adam West.
Yeah, I love the shows from the 70s, and I still watch MeTV. Because I think it's wholesome. I think here's my criticism of where music and art might be going in the wrong direction. When it gets to the over-sexualization of our society is not good. Like, I could do whatever I want, free to... Let's exactly. Like, calm down. There's consequences for being like that. Also, let's stop putting bad ideas in the in people's minds. Let's challenge them to be a little bit more creative and give themselves a little bit more credit than they do, because what we're seeing on social media, specifically Facebook, is everybody's always picturing great, happy times, but that's not what life is really all about. There's no guarantees you're ever going to be happy, right? I don't ever remember reading it like, guaranteed to be happy your entire life. We're all going to have challenges, but how do you respond to these challenges? And what art and music should be is therapeutic and an escape, or a little bit of a distraction. So it's not all so bad. Yeah. And by the way, take more time to enjoy the nature that's out before us and take care of the nature. The trees, the plants, the birds, and the bugs, and, other people, just like respect nature. I think that would be a big step that most of us can take, and it can start with one person and make a big difference. In the art world, as you travel around, what are some of the things that, if you got a platform, if you were to okay, Ed, you're going to talk in front of the United Nations, the floor is yours. What would you like to say to the people of the world? What would be your message?
On art, or
could be anything.
Anything. I mean, I try to talk to my kids and try to impart some of the things that I've learned over my career. And one of the things I would say is just not wait. Just because you always say, well, I'll get better, or I'll wait until I have this, or I'll do that. Just do it now. Don't waste time. I think the biggest thing you can do in life is just waste time. So I said, just do what you're going to do and just start doing it. And the next one will be better, and the one after that will be better, and the one after that will be better. But if you wait, you can spend a lifetime just waiting.
A lot of times people will say to me as a priest, right, I'll wait for when the time is right to have kids, and I do the Homer Simpson. Oh, you don't plan on kids. They just happen. Oh. Like, there's never going to be that perfect time for any of that stuff. So you're right. Don't wait. Yeah. Just have faith. I mean, if you don't have faith, then all is lost. You have to have faith. So it's faith, hope, and charity. These are the things, and ask for wisdom. These are the true gifts. These are the true riches to have all of those three. So that's great. I like that advice. Don't wait. What about your kids? What do they plan on doing? Anybody want to follow in your footsteps at home?
Well, I have two boys who are now my youngest son just turned 18, and my older son will be 20, July 21st.
Okay.
So they were both actually always interested in art and music growing up. The older guy went more towards music. He became a drummer. He's a really good musician.
Oh, of course. And
great drummer. Carmine gave him his first real
lessons,
kit. Yeah.
And lessons from Carmine.
They didn't get any lessons from Carmine.
You should ask him. Yeah.
But my youngest son also plays drums too, but he was more into art and drawing and creative stuff, and he went to a high school for film. And now he's going to go to college for photography. He's really a great photographer.
Oh, that's great.
My oldest son was going to go for music, but recently took a kind of a left turn, which is a little bit of a surprise, but maybe not. He's going to go to culinary school to become a chef.
He's still doing
great. Music, but he wants to do, which is also a very creative thing.
He can be the drummer with a cookbook.
Yeah, actually, when they were both, as I thought about it, then after he kind of surprised us with this, because we were visiting, schools in L.A. and all over, music schools, and then he just decided he wanted to go to culinary school first. But when they were younger, and I actually left the museum so I could spend time with them, and then I could work anytime. So I worked at night, doing artwork and stuff. And when we used to cook lunch and everything, he would always pretend to be doing a cooking show. And when they were little, we did a cooking show together, and I'm actually sorry I didn't pursue it. But we had Eric and Jake's lunch break, and they did a cooking show together.
Well, it's never too late.
Yeah, so now it came full circle. So we might do it. We might still do it.
Well, I'm in the multimedia these days.
Yeah,
I think you got to be really diverse.
I think it's good to be able to multitask and do many different disciplines, especially with,
Well, if you want to be a Renaissance person, you have to be willing to stretch it and explore and try. And I really admire people that put up the shingle and go for it. I really admire the artists that open the gallery and try. And one of the things that I'd like to do in the coming years is have I hope I say this without screwing it up, a pop art pop-up studio that could be attached to like a truck, like, one of those coaches.
Oh, yeah.
And you have your pop-up tents, and we can go to Bryant Park one day. You can go to a Brooklyn, like certain parts of Brooklyn or Queens. While people are doing their Pokemon stuff, we can have a pop art pop-up and play music and make it a place for artists to sell some of their works. I just think that there's so many opportunities that we can all be part of. And don't limit yourself. You're right. And don't put it off for tomorrow, because there's no guarantees you'll be here. So these are all great insights from Ed Heck, world-class famous artist. I mean, do you realize, does it blow your mind when you suddenly think to yourself, oh my gosh, I'm really known in many places throughout the world for my art?
I don't think about it too much, but sometimes it surprises me. Like recently I was in Germany doing shows over there. And also with social media, it's
the world becomes your stage.
Yeah, I mean, people are aware of what you're doing, no matter what. I mean, people like I'm doing these things with duck stickers and stuff.
I saw that. Yeah,
and
the
every
ducks,
show I went to,
that's
people
great.
like, you have stickers.
Did you know that there was a thing? A duck goes around with Kyle Busch in NASCAR.
Oh, really?
They send it, and my wife got a hold of this rubber ducky, and they sent it around. So I'm like, what's with the ducks? I mean, they're cute little birds. That's great.
I don't know why I have a fascination with rubber ducks. I just started. I kind of attach myself to certain objects that I don't know. I just like, even like clothespins. I like clothespins
That's
for
a
some
good
reason.
one. Yeah.
Just different things. And then rubber ducks, I don't know why or when, but I started collecting rubber. And more than collecting them, I started doing drawings of rubber ducks. And then I started doing portraits of some people as rubber ducks.
You can also paint over the rubber ducks.
Yes.
That's another good one.
Yeah, I actually brought back from Germany a big rubber duck that I bought there, and I'm going to paint that one.
Just
but then
so
I
you know.
started deciding, I accumulated all of these rubber duck images. So I was thinking this year I'm going to do a couple of art show exhibits that are just going to be rubber duck images and sculptures.
That's great.
So I was like, well, what can I do? And I always liked street art, kind of, and I dabbled in it a little bit a while ago, but it's like, let me do, since I have all these images, I made up duck stickers, and I figure I'll start putting duck stickers, or I'll release duck stickers. I'm not saying I put duck stickers.
Yeah, I noticed how you
I
had to
released
change
them
that.
into the wild.
Do not post.
Yeah. And, all these ducks, until people will start saying, what the duck is going on. And then that's what the
good.
title of the show is going to be, What the Duck. And I'm also working on a book now that's going to be called I Ducked New York.
Well, maybe
and it's going to have all the photographs of all the duck stickers around New York. How they got there, I don't know, but...
Maybe the cartoon can be based on duck characters that we can play around with. I'd like to be a duck of some type. That's always a lot of fun.
Happen.
So tell us how they can view your art. You're on the websites. You're on Facebook. Tell everybody how
I'm
they
actually updating
can.
my website right now, but I'm on Facebook. You can see a lot of images. I usually do a daily image when I can
that's
on
cool.
Facebook, and then Instagram, which is Ed_Heck. Instagram. You can see them and some duck stickers.
Let's get the duck stickers to go around the world. Like everybody should do something with the duck sticker, and they take a selfie, and there it is in the background. You got to make sure you have some initials on your.
Yeah, I figure
ducks.
I started with New York City, and then I'm going to duck the rest of the world.
I think that we can take the world one duck at a time.
Yeah.
We can make the world a better place through ducks. I mean, they're cute little animals. Probably one. I think giraffes are really up there as far as cuteness.
I like giraffes.
And I like baby elephants. And, baby elephants. They're cute. They're adorable. Hippos.
Yeah.
They'll kill you, though. They just don't be deceived by their cuteness. They will stomp your guts out. So just be careful when you're approaching elephants and hippos.
Rubber ducks are safer.
Well, thank you for stopping by. We'll have you back again really soon. You got something coming up anytime soon? Any shows you got doing?
Well, I have an event, actually, when you were talking about the random acts of art that I do, which this year I started one, kind of a takeoff on random acts of art, where I leave art or give art to people wherever I travel. I started one called Take Heart, which I've gave you a heart today. So my goal was to do 1,000 original heart paintings and give them away. And so actually going with that, I'm doing an event this Saturday that has to do with this. He's a poet, a philosopher, and a peacemaker. It was Matty Stepanek. And I first became aware of him. I picked up his book of poems called Heart Songs, and it had poems and his drawings of hearts. And now I was very inspired by him about, in his short lifetime, the things that he'd done and all of the people that he has inspired and continue to inspire. they're having this Saturday a celebration of peace in honor of what would have been his 29th birthday. So I'm going to be, I painted 29 hearts. Actually, I painted 30 hearts, 29 hearts for every year of his life, and one for good luck. And I'll be giving them away at the peace event Saturday, and it's up in Rockville, Maryland. And you can go to like MaddieOnline.com and see all the information about that. It's a really good organization that's kind to forward his message of peace. And his mother, Jenny, is a great ambassador for that. They call her Mama Peace.
That's great. Yeah. I do remember Maddie on Larry King a lot, sharing his wisdom with people.
Oprah Winfrey.
And he would actually, with his perspective on life in general, he'd bring you to tears.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you actually, you know what you would come out of the interview with? Like, I've got nothing to complain about.
Kid,
I got a lot of nerve thinking that I have it tough.
I mean, this kid was like, I guess, the embodiment of what a living angel would be, I guess.
Oh, my God.
And in his short life, the things that he did and the things he inspired, and like I said, continues to inspire, is amazing. And like you were talking about doing things without thinking about monetary things or anything.
Yeah.
And that he's the embodiment of that.